Hey guys, Stuart Breeding. Welcome back to S2TV and our ongoing series on the squat. We are almost done and ready to load that bar on our back. I know you guys are waiting for that. Today we're going to get into hip exercises, hip stretches, and self-myofascial release. So if you're having glute issues, hip flexor issues, we're going to get into that today. But before we do, I wanted to start by showing you guys our core power class. I think a lot of people who are watching this video or listen to me or anybody else talk about corrective exercise automatically just fall asleep. They think they're not going to get anything out of a corrective exercise regimen, and nothing could be further from the truth. Our core power class is a perfect example of how you can do core-centric corrective exercise training and get one heck of a workout at the same time. So the average heart rate in our core power class is somewhere around 75%. We do an interval, 5 to 6 station interval, whole body, once again, corrective exercise regimen, and we average anywhere between 65 and 85% max heart rate, so it is a low intensity interval. It's one hell of a tough class. So don't think for a second that if you're not adding corrective exercise into your fitness regimen because you think it may be boring or you're not going to get anything out of it, think again. You really can get quite an aggressive workout out of doing these very, very minute, specific, small, mindful exercises. So let's get started with one of our first hip exercises. All right, guys. Hello, I'm Suzanne Summers, and this is the Thigh Master. Just kidding. So we're going to get into some external rotation or abduction, and I'm going to group all the hips: glute medius, piriformis, glute max. So I'm going to group them all because you can really kind of start splitting hairs when you're looking at specific exercises for piriformis, glute medius, glute max. Those muscles are all conspiring to abduct the femur, especially in the squat below 90 degrees. So I'm just going to do a bunch of them. Make this pretty simple to do, and I like to use exercises that are easy to do. I can do them anywhere. You could be sitting behind a desk doing this. So this is just seated abduction with a band, and you can get these guys anywhere. So I'm going to turn it into a bit of a walk. So as I step, I'm going to go toe, heel, and squat a little bit, abduct, pull this foot in. Step, toe, heel, and I want to be careful to not let my knees move into valgus as I'm doing this. So as I step out, I want to keep the alignment of the knee over top of the foot and then abduct at the bottom. So I'm pulling that femur apart. You'll immediately feel that in glute, especially if you start with seated. So next would be just what we call clams. I'm just going to go to the floor, and the band needs to be below the kneecap. Make sure you're not putting this thing on the patella because it can be a little painful. Feet are going to stay together, and then I'm just going to concentrate on this leg abducting. I'm going to isolate that glute, and this is when you'll start to find out where maybe right side, left side, you'll see some a little significant difference in strength and probably range of motion. But that bottom leg needs to stay anchored to the floor. Top leg is moving. Don't be surprised. These exercises look simple. They really will start to burn after a while. Great corrective exercise, great warm-up, great cool-down. Either way, just do them a lot, especially if you're having valgus issues at the knee. Guarantee it's coming from glute medius, piriformis issues. I'm going to do one more with this guy. I'm going to move it down to the ankle, and then I'm going to lay flat on the ground. And then from here, what I'm going to do is turn the leg I'm working, turn that toe in towards my other leg, and then I'm going to pull up and out and hold. This one's a smoker. This one hurts really good. Pull up and out and hold. And remember, as you're doing these reps, they should be nice and slow, really controlled movement. Take your time with this one. Remember, the toe stays in, and you'll almost always start to externally rotate your toe out. It needs to stay in, and that will lock in pretty much all of the external rotators You'll love that. So next, I've got some mini bands. These are bands that you can get from Rogue. But I've got a green one, I've got a couple of blue ones here set up, and there's a lot of different really fun, funky exercises that you can do and set these up. Like I said, I like to keep things pretty simple. This little band I was using before, you know, you can stick that in your bag, you can stick one in your pocket. They're easy to carry, and the exercises that you do with them should be pretty basic, easy to do, easy to replicate. I'm going to get a little bit tricky and just give you some ideas how you can take these exercises and be a little more creative with them. So what I've got set up here is a green band set up on the outside of my knee. So obviously it's pulling me to the outside. So as I begin to set up this squat, one thing that's going to happen is I'm becoming oversensitized. My nervous system is responding to the fact that my knee wants to cave, so it's forcing me to externally rotate as I sit. So right now, I'm just focusing on a squat, and I can step out as far as I need to increase the tension on that. Now, we've talked a lot about valgus and varus. Now, when we're squatting, we don't see valgus and varus. We don't see the knee moving that much. If we do, like I've stated earlier, we know that's an issue. Where we see it a lot is when we start to lunge, because we're beginning to load one leg a little bit more than the other. If I'm in a good lunge, I'm probably pushing maybe 60% of my body weight on that front leg, okay? So step one is going to be making sure you're doing a correct lunge. A good cue for that is when I look down, I should see the entire shoelace, the entire top of my shoe. If it starts to disappear, I know I'm flexing at the knee, I'm pushing that knee too far forward. In a squat, that's okay. In a lunge, it's not what we want to do because we're creating shear force on the meniscus. So I want to concentrate. I can see the top of my shoe. My back toe is in alignment. I'm not offsetting this way to counter the balance. I'm also not leaning or pulling against the band. I'm perfectly set up. My spine is in alignment, and I'm going to come straight down into that lunge. Focusing the knee directly over top of the toe, and you'll probably notice this little kind of bouncy response that the knee is having, where it's just slightly moving a little bit into valgus and varus. And obviously the goal is to correct that. Now if you're seeing too much over and over, just release the tension a little bit. But this is a great one for external rotators, specifically because we see so much valgus and varus in the knee, especially when we're doing lunges. Now, obviously, we can start working this and progress this into a single leg lunge. Much more difficult. And you'll see that happen a lot faster. You'll see the knee pull into valgus. So I just want to adjust the tension where I'm working, but the knee is staying directly over top of the toe. The next one I'm going to do is if you have decided that hip flexor / psoas is a bit underactive. Like I say, it's a rare thing that we see that, but it is a possibility. Basically, we're just looking for some simple exercises that we can do to get this guy activated. And I've just tied off one of these mini bands off to the rack in front of me. It's really simple. Just run a girth hitch around it. Attach the other end to your foot. This leg is going to be down and supported. And now all I'm going to do is stay in dorsiflexion and begin to pull that knee directly into my belly, keeping my back flat, and back out again. Full extension. Flex, flex, flex. Back out. This is a really simple exercise to do. And once again, this is if you see the psoas is underactive. If you're overactive, this is probably the last thing you want to be doing. But this is a really great, simple exercise to warm up the psoas, get it ready for work, kind of wake it up a little bit. Okay guys, so the last one I'm going to do for the glutes is going to be without a band. Really simple exercise to do. It's a single leg glute bridge, and that would be a progression. So I'm going to do the regressed version and then show you progression. Very simply, just lie back, Trying to stabilize the spine again. Feet are going to be together and pulled in pretty closely towards your glutes. From here, hands are flat. I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades together, activate scapula, and then I'm going to press my glutes up until the hip, knee, and shoulder are in alignment. So that's with 2 feet. So that's the most regressed form of this exercise. If you feel like you can do that pretty easily, then the more advanced or progressed version would be with a single leg. And you're really going to start feeling this one a lot faster than you are with 2. So if you can do it with 2 and you can do it relatively easy, go right to a single leg. But this is a great glute activator. Okay guys, so last but not least, the hip flexor. In my experience, I don't see a lot of people with issues in the hip flexor, specifically the iliopsoas, as a underactive muscle. It's usually almost always an overactive muscle. The psoas is a pretty beefy muscle. It's like the filet mignon of the muscle. It crosses over the top of the hip, which is important to remember when we get into stretching it. So one of my favorite exercises for the hip flexor, for stretching it specifically, also is one of the greatest glute exercises that there is. It's called the Belgian split squat. So the way I'm going to set this up is I'm going to put a bench or a chair directly behind me. I'm going to put my balance, my weight on one leg, and I'm going to reach back on top of that chair with the other foot. Now, the top of the foot should be gently on the edge of the chair with the laces facing down. Now, when I start this exercise, it's important that I start it the same way as I do my squat or the normal lunge. So remember, when I'm squatting, I'm moving into a hip hinge first. If I'm just doing a lunge, once again, I'm moving into my hip first, not the knee. If I'm moving forward at the knee in the lunge, I'm creating shear on the meniscus, and it's a matter of time before I have a knee issue. We can move forward at the knee in the squat, and you will and should. It's just the load on your body is totally different, and it allows you to move into that dorsiflexion mobility. The lunge, we do not want the knee to move forward. So your cue is, can you see the top of your shoe at all times during your lunge, and especially the Belgian split squat, because I am really loading the majority of my body weight on this front leg. So once again, I'm going to reach back with my back leg. I'm going to focus on the front hip hinge, and then I'm going to gently lower that back leg down towards the floor and allow the knee to actually move towards the chair. I want a slight extension in the spine, almost a hyperextension, so that hip is coming forward. Now from here, remember, the psoas is crossing the hip. So to get to it, to really stretch it, I need to move across my body, specifically towards my lead leg, and then hold that position. So you can hold that position as long as you can basically support your body weight with that hip. So the Belgian split squat as an exercise is simply just like any other lunge. Okay, we're just loading the body weight, hinging at the hip. You could add dumbbells at some point if you want. I do a ton of exercises with the Belgian split as a base. As a stretch, as a warm-up, the best way to do it, once again, is to stretch the back leg, in this case the psoas on this side, by crossing the joint of the opposite leg.